This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, October the 21st. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get it added. What am I trying to say? Let's get at it. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So off to a flying start here this morning. Little bit tired, got to admit. You know where I'm going to start. Junior high basketball, St. Stephen's of Bartholomew versus St. Francis of Assisi. No, how about those Blue Jays? Man, you know, it has been since 1993, 32 years ago, since the Jays went to the World Series, and back they go. Look, even casual baseball fans, I think, are hopping on this bandwagon, and there's lots of room for bandwagoners. I think sometimes people use bandwagon as an insult, but it's not. It's exciting. It's fun. It's a great escape from some of the doldrums that we focus in on day after day after day after day, but off we go, and leave it to George Springer. It was a couple of games ago, looked like his season was over. Takes a fastball off the right kneecap, gets the treatment, comes back, and last night the hero. 3-run blast in the 7th inning to lead the Jays to a 4-3 victory. And who gets the win? Kevin Gausman. It's just amazing stuff. Anyway, they're up against the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers are super thick. They got a wicked team. Can the Jays win? Maybe. They have home field advantage, but they absolutely have to make it an advantage. You can't drop a game at home to the Dodgers and think you're going to escape Los Angeles with anything but a runner-up finish in the World Series, but off we go. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Anyway, you want to talk about it? I hope you do. All right, a couple of more sports notes. Dave Penny, local Dave Penny, rugby player, played for Canada. Penny's a good guy and a super athlete and a great rugby player. His daughter, Jessie Penny, plays rugby at St. F.X. She leads the country in tries. She's got 14 tries this year, one ahead of the Adia Pai, who plays out west somewhere. But Jessie Penny leading the country in tries is absolutely wonderful stuff. Super player. And I mentioned last week Blair Bursey was doing pretty well at the Corn Ferry Q School in the first stage. Got through. A tie for 8th finish at the first stage, off to the second stage in early December. This week he's playing on the Asian Tour golf qualifying first stage down in Morocco. So way to go, Blair Bursey. All right. Sort of strange headlines sometimes, and unfortunately many people read the headlines, don't read the story, consequently leave with a misconstrued version of what's actually being discussed. This one's about spending, provincial government spending. You hear me talk about it all the time. I don't know why more people don't talk about it, but here we go. With the incoming government promises about $284.6 million in additional spending. Whether that be to refunnel monies that are already budgeted for a variety of policies and programs, I don't know. And hopefully we'll get an opportunity to speak with the Premier Designate, Mr. Wakeham, in the very near future while they get sorted out and appointed cabinet, get sworn in and all the rest of it. So this story is talking about a warning from a credit rating agency. Okay, it's kind of that, but not really. So it wasn't warning about a drop in credit rating or ability to borrow or to sell bonds on the market. It was basically about the Morningstar DBRS warning. It might be difficult for the government to stop racking up debt. We have the highest debt per capita in the entire country. We know that to be true. If you add in all the financial liabilities and exposure, it's a dire tale. So it wasn't a warning that we're not going to be able to borrow. Because remember, it wasn't that long ago that when Dwight Ball was the Premier, talking about things like might not be able to make payroll, might not be able to secure long-term borrowing. We're not there yet. So the warning is about whether or not the government can avoid racking up additional debt, which I think is still a massive concern that didn't get much, if any, attention during the campaign. But sometimes those headlines, boy, we really got to read the stories to figure out what exactly they're talking about. All right, here we go. Not so sure I was more sick of anything in this world than talking about the COVID vaccine. Now, when it was made mandatory, it was obviously going to be a problem and a hangover for many people right across the country. But it's vaccination season, and if you're so inclined, because it's not mandatory, if you'd like to go get your flu shot and or your COVID vaccine booster, do exactly that. Last year's flu season was pretty brutal here in the province. You know, people asked questions during the throes of the pandemic when people were facing certain restrictions that people asked, where'd the flu go? Well, the flu came back last year in a hurry. So over 2,000 lab-confirmed cases, 743 hospitalizations, most ever recorded. So it's up to you. If you're interested, 'tis the season to get it. The flu vaccine is a trivalent, so to hopefully stave off very difficult circumstances and potential for hospitalization for 3 different strains circulating in the country, in the population. Anyway, I'm not talking about vaccines anymore. Anyway, it's vaccination season. If you want to go get it, go do it. All right, interesting stories out there about public safety, and every politician of every stripe is talking about it, albeit with a different bent or angle. You know, the pledges to hire, say, 1,000 additional RCMP officers. Sounds about right. The hope to hire somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 new RNC officers. Sounds about right. People do indeed point to the fact that more police means potential for greater public safety, even though that's kind of an after the fact when crimes have been committed. But, you know, with police on the beat, potential to squash any potential crimes to be committed. Same thing on the highway. Nothing slows you down quite like a police cruiser in your eye lines. The trick will be, just like many other professions and disciplines that we talk about the need to hire more to fill the shortages, to fill the gaps, is where is everybody? I mean, there's been incentives inside the RCMP and the RNC, you know, whether it be the boost in the amount for bursaries and the potential to possibly waive any tuition fees associated with going to Holland College, all good things. Where is everybody who wants to be a law enforcement officer? It's the same trick when we talk about healthcare professionals. You know, the Registered Nurses Union has probably told me to get back in touch with Yvette Coffey, the president at the RNUNL. There are big promises made in healthcare. One thing I think we're missing the boat here, well, if we're actually doing something on this front, then bravo, but I haven't heard any mention of recruiting in the United States. I mean, you just read the national media. There are healthcare professionals who are considering, and many have already left the United States to make their new home in Canada. Look at British Columbia. They are actively and aggressively recruiting healthcare professionals, notably nurses and doctors, from the United States and have secured hundreds. What are we doing? I mean, we've had the trips to Jamaica and India and Ireland and Ukraine and other places in an effort to make said recruitment, even though we're not doing a great job with fast-tracking credentials, that when we are able to recruit a healthcare pro, we can put it in work, put him on the floor. 4 North B, here you go. Now, not to say we should throw caution to the wind and not do due diligence, because of course we have to. I mean, it's life and death circumstances here. But we've got an office in Boston that is focusing on economic partnerships, which is obviously a very good thing. But could we and should we not add an additional mandate to that office to be looking for healthcare pros? Don't take it from me. Go ahead and read some of the national stories regarding different provinces, most notably British Columbia, and what they're doing to try to bring healthcare pros from the United States. We need them. We all know it to be true. Access to primary care is a problem here in this province for who knows however many. People use numbers like 150, 165,000 people without access to a family doctor. Let's see how many in the northeastern United States may indeed be interested in making a new home in Canada as a healthcare pro. If we're not doing that in Boston, we're missing an opportunity here. I know the economy and economic partnerships and opportunities and synergies is obviously important during this absolutely unnecessarily chaotic economic times. But healthcare pros, I think, to a man, to a woman, when we talk about what was important during the campaign, whether it be the Upper Churchill or cost of living, healthcare was at the top of mind for the vast majority of voters in this province and every province across the country. So I'd like to know what we're doing with that particular Boston office, and an update there would be helpful. In addition to that, I brought it up last week and it got a fair bit of traction, and it's the whole concept of sick notes. If you're a private employer and you don't trust your employees when they call in sick and you make them go get a sick note, that's between you and your employee. But how many doctors' offices or clinics or emergency rooms or wherever are clogged up with people who have been sent in to get a sick note? If you don't trust your employee, that's your own private sector problem. But for the vast majority of people who need to see a clinician, they don't need someone with the sniffles or whatever's plaguing them to want them to call in sick, sitting in front of them in a clinic. Can we just, massage your relationship inside your own company? Come up with a better strategy than making someone go get a sick note. If you think someone's abusing sick leave, you know it to be true. If every second Friday, Joe or Jane calls in sick, then deal with Joe or Jane. If they're not reliable employees, then deal with them on a personal level, a professional level in your company. Not clogging up the waiting rooms in one clinic or another to be sent in for a sick note. What do you think? Let's talk about it. Oh, just pops in my head. What's the future of the Premier's office in Central? Some mayors, municipal leaders in Central think it's been quite beneficial. And others will say, hey, just because of geography and travelling distance between Gander, Grand Falls, what have you, to St. John's, to the Confederation Building, with access to the Premier or other cabinet ministers or the government proper, what is the future of the Premier's office in Central? And if you're living in that region, let's talk about it. All right, let's get back in education here for a second. So I don't know why more people don't want to talk about it live on the air, whether it be the absence of supports for individual students and what that means for day-to-day operations in the classroom. But I do fairly often hear from teachers after hours when they talk about one important issue, on top of violence, which is obviously a big problem, is they talk about just how often they have to repeat themselves because so many students are absent, and chronically so. Look, if a student is weary of going to school because of bullying or violence or whatever the case may be, there's reasons why some kids don't want to go to school. Transportation, troubles at home, whatever it is. But the chronic absenteeism number is absolutely out of control. I mean, I'll just reiterate this one stat just so we can drive the point home. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 10% of the student population is chronically absent. The big down the road picture there is if you are chronically absent in grade 6, 75% of those children do not graduate from high school. So to somehow figure this out, which requires not only the Department of Education, but probably Justice, Child and Youth Family Services, whatever the case may be, a variety of different departments really do need to sit in the same room and come up with some sort of approach to this. And, it's also going to be probably important for administrators and teachers to really have a firm understanding as to why one child is absent. Now, I know their plates are absolutely overflowing with all their day-to-day responsibilities already, but if teachers have to go back down the path of supplying curriculum and worksheets and what have you to families who their children are at home, and chronically so, then we're just adding workload and we're not really taking steps forward. We're just sort of side shuffling. So anyway, you want to talk about education? We can do it. All right, how are we doing out there this morning, Dave? I'm exhausted, so I really need some help here today. What's this scribble? Oh, and then you talk about preparation for the future. There was a call yesterday, I'm not going to mention which one specifically, but it brought upon a bunch of emails in response talking about the need for people to get into or back into the workforce. We are looking for an update regarding the Employment Stabilization Program, which as a pilot in this province last year, but it was only in St. John's, there was about 170 people signed up participating in the pilot, and 9 months later, 40 of them were no longer in need of income support. Why? Because there's some very simple approaches. So what the province did, so if you're going to begin a new job, continue working, the government will give you a payment of $250 after 6 months, $500 a year after, and $1,000 after 2 years. We're talking about small amounts of money, and it seemed to be working. The pilot was successful enough in St. John's that they were going to expand it province-wide, but no update since. So are we actually on the path for this to become some measure of success? In addition to that, there was a new earnings exemption formula. People are going to be able to keep more of their earnings, which obviously continues to make sense given the cost of living issues we're dealing with. Then there are simple things. A job start allowance. So you need steel-toe boots, or you need a new pair of dungarees, or whatever it is. Job start allowance went from $125 to $250. The total pot of money was minuscule when compared to even the amount of taxes that those people will pay because they've got back into, or for the first time ever, entered into the job force. So let's take it on. All right, a couple of things here. All right. Temporary foreign worker program. Look, youth unemployment numbers in the country are a huge problem. Huge problem. The use of temporary foreign worker program, number one, is employers who have abused it. There's a Canadian Tire franchisee who has been indeed punished for abusing and falsifying labour market impact assessments in an effort to get approved for temporary foreign workers. Many people point the finger directly at the TFW program about youth unemployment. But if you look around at some of the other issues that maybe absolutely contribute to it, number one, like if you talk about it, the fast food industry, people who I speak with who are owners of these franchises, they say they use the program because they want to hire people to work full time. Not that locals will not take the job, but for many it would be potentially a seasonal job, a summer job, and owners want to hire someone full time. But the biggest contributor that I can find regarding youth unemployment here is international student visas. When you're given one, you have an open 3-year opportunity to work. Now, there was issues regarding the number of hours international students were allowed to work throughout the pandemic and whatnot, but abolishing the temporary foreign worker program just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Should employers do everything in their power to ensure that people locally are given the first and best opportunity to be hired? Absolutely. But we've got a problem here that's starting to grow and grow and grow, is that we're blaming a temporary foreign worker as opposed to government policy. Nobody came to the country to purposefully steal your job. But if the policies are not being abided by employers and expanded way too quickly by the federal government, let's point the issue at these people as opposed to the newcomer, the temporary foreign worker. And the last one I'm going to get to before we get to you is, look, there's nothing probably as tedious as the culture wars. And it's grotesque in the United States, and it's getting worse here. So, DEI. We're going to hear a lot more about it in the very near future. There's already plenty of rumblings here in the country. And it's the pendulum swing. So you'll hear from, whether it be Mr. Polyev or others, about abolishing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The conversation has become so incredibly skewed. So at one stage, when we talk about a return to what people call meritocracy, hiring by merit, the assertions in the argument are kind of thin gruel. You know, in the world of pendulum swings, at one point in history, apparently the only people that had the merit to be hired were white guys. And now it's changed. Now, can the pendulum swing too far, like things regarding, say, affirmative action and or DEI? Absolutely. It's the nature of the beast in the world of the pendulum swinging around. But abolishing it just means, like, for instance, when I hear thought leaders say that they'll worry if the engineer or the doctor or the pilot is a minority, then they question whether or not they had the actual merit, the training, the experience, the credentials to be hired. That's not really what any DEI program actually means. But, you know, should people only get hired on merit? Absolutely. But to pretend that 30 years ago merit was the only thing that gauged and guided hiring is absolutely false as well. So we're going to hear a lot about it, but while there's so many issues of real dire consequence to be discussing, let's do all of ourselves a favor, collectively, regardless of where you lean on the political spectrum. Culture wars occupy a lot of our time, a lot of our brain space, a lot of our energy, and in the big scheme of things are probably not as important as some people make them out to be. Should people get hired because they have the hard work, the drive, the energy, the training, the education to get the job? Of course. Of course they should. But to bleed that back into just starting point of a culture war, just stand back and think about it. You could be yelling at me and yelling at your radio right now, but when we go to the break, just think about how much time so many people spend on this and what it really means in the big scheme of things. Amazing. I'll get absolutely battered from stem to stern on that one, but hey, so be it. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That can only happen if you're in the queue. The topic, up to you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this morning on line number one. So good morning to the chair at the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities. That's Sid Walensky. And good morning, Sid. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly, and happy post-election.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Your preamble today, I would love to speak about a lot of the stuff that you spoke to, but I have to stay focused on where we are today. First, I'd like to congratulate the new government and to wish them well in this, shall we say, very complicated new world that we live in. And I would like to remind them that they made certain statements during the election that we would like to speak to right now. Mr. Wakeham got on I was not going to say the radio, but I would say more out in the public, and said he was going to put $400,000 to help run the Disability Advocate's office. And that's a very good sign. It means that they're willing to go ahead with this. And they also had said that, they want to get this done as soon as possible, which we applaud them 100%. However, we have to give caution. Getting it done quickly, as opposed to getting it done right, is a very important statement. A lot of the stuff that's going to need to be done to establish this office is going to have to be done with communication with the community and get their involvement. Where in past we have been told, this is what we're going to do, and with no involvement in what we had to say. That the office itself should be an independent office without ministerial oversight. In other words, that the office itself will be an independent body to investigate and to get things done in the community. So that's one thing. The other thing that they spoke about was the fact of having a core funding system for all the community-based organizations. And we've seen a lot of them go by the wayside in the last couple of years because there's no real funding model, and there never has been one to keep these organizations going. So we're hoping that this new détente, so to speak, into the world of disability will actually happen. So those are the basic things that we want to remind the government about. And in many issues, you just spoke about DEI. Now, DEI has got so many negative and positive things around it, but we just have to say that the core of it is allowing people from all sorts of walks of life, organizations, cultural backgrounds, and physical ability to be able to apply to work or have some form of giving benefits to society without having to worry about either what do they call it, barriers in the workplace, barriers in the environment that we live. So these are the things that we're hoping that this new government will bring in and will establish, and we'll see a new détente in the community.
The concept of DEI on its face, similar to affirmative action, it makes sense. It's a generational adjustment to how employers and individuals view opportunities in the workforce. Can it indeed swing too far? Yes, like everything. The pendulum is built that way. That's what happens. Any careful consideration of how it works, how it has worked, the benefits that we have seen versus just an immediate downside, and it's some sort of punishment to homegrown white Canadians, is just kind of missing a big part of the conversation here. So, it's gone all the way to, if I hear one more person say that there's going to be, if I walk onto an aircraft and the pilot is black, then I think he got hired because of his skin color. Look, people don't give out certificates and pilot's license or doctorates for medical professionals or engineers based on that. The hiring and the competition, we can and should be talking about that. But it's just like the immigration conversation, period. If the first thing that comes to anybody's mind is you dare question you're branded a racist, let's just not do that. Let's have the conversations. We don't need to label anybody before we actually discuss what's happening in the country, what's happening in hiring, what's happening in the disabled community, before we just go down these roads of immediately branding people. It just derails every meaningful conversation that gets left behind because we're just quick to spout off and to brand somebody or to label somebody, and consequently, we get nowhere. All we do is fight.
Yes. Yeah, we got to use we got to use our mind as opposed to our eyes. And we live in a world that's extremely xenophobic these days. And in our area of the disability world, we see a lot of it. We see it every day. But we do see a change, and it's a positive change, and I'm very happy to state that. We see it in the way that Newfoundlanders are considered a very wonderful place to go to because it's a safe place. We see all people as people. I mean, on the most. I mean, we do have our exceptions in the community, and I don't even want to go there. But however, if you go out into the community, we are a very welcoming community. So, good for Newfoundland. However, you're right. You get this sourness that comes out of this because of what we see outside the province, and it sort of like pushes it in. So in our world of disability, we tend to say, look, we're here, we're loud, we're proud, and, we're not going to go anywhere soon, and we're a growing community, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. It's a difficult subject, and there's a lot of emotion around it on both sides. However, we do see a change in the environment, and that's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. And I didn't mean to derail the conversation about Mr. Wakeham's pledges regarding a disabilities advocate and first-year funding at $400,000. Quick question on that, Sid, is how do you think that office would represent the disabled community, the disability community, the best? Would it be like the seniors advocate, where it's just take the big high-line subjects and represent as an advocate for, whether it impacts one person or 1,000 people? Or do we champion people individually and take their name, their face to the public discourse? Because sometimes I think when we just generally advocate on behalf of a full swath of people, it maybe is not as effective of saying this person with this circumstance, these life issues that they're trying to face. When we paint it like that, sometimes it comes across with more impact. Your thoughts?
Okay, so two things here. Number one, the coalition has been doing this for years, systemic individual advocacy. Right now, we're trying to get the government to establish a disability advocate as a formal thing. A person that's able to do investigation, that's not handcuffed by a minister, that reports directly to the legislature, and works with two sides. I mean, there's the systemic issues that are large and just encompassing, and there's also a multitude of individual advocacy that needs to be done. How the office would run, once it's staffed and they can start with the issues coming in, they're going to be looking at both sides of the coin. So it's going to need someone that understands both the systemic as well as the individual advocacy issues. And it's a real Pandora's box, I have to tell you, because one doesn't always exclude the other. What may be a personal advocacy issue may be also a systemic issue, and we need the right person in the job to understand these things. I hope that answers your question.
I think so, and it's a really complicated one, so I wasn't expecting a 30-second succinct, definitive answer to it, because I think it's just part of the discussion, because if we're going to take the time and spend the money, and appropriately so, to have or to establish a disability advocate in their office, we got to make sure it's done right. That's all. That's the only reason I'm asking those kind of questions, just to keep the conversation going, because doing it for the sake of is one thing, doing it thoughtfully with a measurable positive outcome that we can check boxes off, that's the most important thing to me, regardless if we're talking about this new to be created advocate or otherwise.
Yeah, well, the most important part is it's done with the community and not for the community. And
Absolutely.
I hate to use that expression, without us, nothing about us without us, but it's very apropos in this case. Agreed.
See, anything else this morning?
Actually, two things.
Okay.
Number one is in the future, we're hoping to establish every couple of months a town hall meeting to listen to our community and to see what we can bring forward to help them out. The other thing is, I just want to put it out there that December 3rd is the International Day of the Persons with Disability, and that we will be making an announcement on that day as well. And, I just want to congratulate the government, that's a new government, and hope that they grab the tiger by the tail and do some good work.
Absolutely. Sid, good to have you on the show. Appreciate your time.
Thanks very much, Patty. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Sid Widlansky, he's the chair at COD-NL. It's the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities. Let's take a break. When we come back, Kyle's in the queue. He wants to talk about, I guess, what I mentioned off the top about the time and energy we spend on these so-called culture wars, and then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back. Before we get to you, Kyle, a quick traffic announcement here on line 1. Ray, you're on the air.
Yeah, hello, Paddy.
Hello.
I just came west. Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yep.
I just came west there on the Trans-Canada from Ford all the way going east now on the Trans-Canada. Right up to the Trans-Canada Highway is backed up because of construction there by Ford. I just wanted to let people know that it's frustrating.
Yeah, look, Kenmount Road at the best of times is frustrating, especially during the busy traffic peaks of the day. So beware, folks, if you have to make your way wherever, if you're going to Mount Carson Avenue or wherever you're going, maybe Thompson Road is better than Kenmount Road this morning.
That's it. Exactly. Thanks.
Appreciate the time, Ray. Thanks for doing it.
Okay. All the best.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, and leave here at lunchtime, or if you're leaving the business or a shop here at 4 o'clock, 4:30 and trying to turn left, it's not happening. Let's go to line number 3. Kyle, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how are you?
Doing okay. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I just want to come out and I feel like this topic needs a disclaimer, if you will. I'm not particularly educated in this topic. I haven't worked in this topic. I work in the trades, and I'm a sole provider for a young family. We have our family personally has helped a couple dozen Ukrainian families in the past couple of years. When they come in, with things from Christmas presents to furniture and that kind of thing. As you mentioned before, this sort of talk about culture wars, and I guess the term itself sort of struck a chord with me, and I know from my perspective, or from where I'm standing, like some of my views may not necessarily seem liberal. They may seem pretty conservative, and I hope they don't seem bigoted. However, given the sensitivity of the issue, like I'm sure they could come across that way. But I just want to throw out the idea that a lot of what local people see as unfair or unjust could come across as an issue with culture. But on the financial side of what's happening here is, I think people are a lot more frustrated with the government and how it's handling and how it's treating these, say, newcomers versus its own citizens. Like, when a family comes in, and again, this is my understanding, they're set up with financial aid, and rightly so. I do believe they should be, and this is not against that. However, is there any limit to that? Like,
there is.
Most recently, I've heard as much as say $6,000, $8,000, $9,000 a month in subsidies for families, and all right, it costs almost that much, to live comfortably here. But that's on top of wages that they may make, and granted, those may be low. They may have to take entry-level positions because credentials are not necessarily transferable. Somebody may have to work in the fast food industry or service industry or an industry that doesn't generally provide enough income to support a family. But from what I have seen, or my understanding is that the amount of money that these families are taking in surely surpasses what the majority of local people are making.
Yeah, let's dig into it a bit, Kyle. It's a reasonable conversation, and I like your approach here this morning. So, I see some of these numbers floating around 8, 9, 10,000. I really don't know where people get that number, to be honest with you. It's the same thing when we talk about the temporary foreign worker program, the suppression of wages. There's no federal subsidy for temporary foreign workers. Let's just put that out there. It's not a thing. There are a bunch of different support programs out there provincially and federally, but no federal program is distinctly for a wage subsidy for a temporary foreign worker. And then when it comes to immigrants, newcomers, it depends. Like when the Ukrainians were given fast-track opportunities to come to Canada, it was without a lot of the supports that other refugees and asylum seekers and skilled trades newcomers come. So it kind of depends on who you are, why you're here, where you came from, as to the amount of money that flows from the federal government. Refugees. Like when you arrive, for some, there's a one-time allowance, and it's monthly, and it maxes out after a year. And some of it is directly because of the child tax benefit. So that's something that all Canadians get. So some of the money that we're talking about newcomers get is what everybody gets in a child tax benefit. There's provincial assistance numbers, which can be as much as $1,500, but it's one time, and everything maxes out after the course of a year. It depends on the size of your family. Like for instance, in the refugee program, because I think that's what gets a lot of attention. Let's just pick Ontario and this province. A single person gets around $635 a month. But that maxes out. So, and it changes if and when you have a family. So that's where we get some of those numbers adding up to, maybe $5,000. But there's a cap and there's a timeline. And some of that money is not just for newcomers, it's for Canadians. The child tax benefit is the number one contributor, and it does max out. So I think you're making a really important point as to, for all of us to understand that immigration comes in many forms. Refugee, asylum seekers, international students, people on the pathway to permanent residency, people who have been targeted as skilled trades or healthcare professionals. So it's all a little bit different, which muddies the waters, and not everybody has time to dig in and know what every single pot of money looks like for every single newcomer to the country. But it's an important conversation because I think the first point made was people get frustrated with the government. You're right. But what they do is they sometimes, and some people, they'll take it out on the newcomer, not the government, which I think is what is happening more and more. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right there. And thank you, Patty. A part of this phone call is definitely to educate myself and hopefully others and clear up some frustration there. Yes, as a young family, we receive child tax benefits, and there are some subsidies there. And I guess, really, I just want to throw that idea out there, is that, to, even myself and to other people, when, looking at a group or something, if there's frustration, take it back a step, because a lot of times, at least in what I've seen, is it is misdirected frustration, because, we live, say, for example, we live close to the Sikh Society, and so every Sunday the streets are sort of blocked up a bit there in Logie Bay. There's a lot of traffic around, and in the conversation with a neighbor of mine, it was brought up well, I can't believe they're taking over the streets and that kind of thing. And I just sort of thought, well, we did the same thing at church, right? They're just going to service, the same as anyone else. But that frustration, I don't think in a lot of cases comes from a bad place. It just comes from misdirection, because there's no real understanding given to the citizens as to what the benefits are for those people. So when they see a newer family driving in a luxury sedan, then their assumption in a lot of cases, I think, is, I'm driving a 2002 Honda Civic that's falling apart and working my tail off, but somebody who just comes in is able to afford this more comfortable lifestyle. And why is that? And I don't necessarily believe that a lot of the frustration with newcomers is from a place of bad intent. Again, like you said, I just think it's misdirected frustration with the government or with the situation we're in with inflation after COVID. I mean, we're in a pretty weird place right now.
We are,
and it's easy to put the blame elsewhere.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. From a broad perspective, the population of newcomers to Canada just grew too quickly. We weren't prepared. Even newcomers will tell you that, whether it be access to primary care or housing. We really did, create a problem unnecessarily so. And the newcomer who looks like a newcomer and is driving a Beamer might be an anesthesiologist from Toronto. Right? But we don't do that careful calculation about who might be who and where they might be from or how long they've been here or what they do for a living, because we just, it's a bit of human nature bleeds in here. Judging book by covers, and everybody is all of a sudden, if you look or you sound like you're new to the country, then somehow you've been coddled, when we don't even take the time to understand where someone might be coming from and why they've chose to come to this country. And I will add the caveat, the population grew too quick. Had that not been the case, we'd probably have a very different sounding conversation about immigration to the country and immigration to this province. The temporary foreign worker program, for me, is fascinating and not the right kind. I mean, the program started under, guess who? Pierre Elliott Trudeau, right? 1973. Right. At that time, we're talking about filling shortages primarily in nursing and agriculture. It was expanded when? 2006. And who was the Prime Minister? Stephen Harper. And that was about low-wage jobs. And there were no caps. In 2025, there was a reduction. About 125,000 fewer temporary foreign workers were admitted to the country in January to June of 25 compared to January to June of 24. So we've capped international student numbers. There's been a new cap and a reduction in temporary foreign workers. There is a slowing of immigration in the broad scheme of things through all four silos. So I'm glad we're having a real conversation, as opposed to we're going to argue about feelings versus facts. We're just going to get all emotional and aggressive and teary-eyed or obstinate, because those conversations are holding us all back. They just are. And whatever people's opinions are, fair enough. And you can tell when someone is just being a straight up bigot versus legitimate questions. Safety and security and vetting and numbers and housing and healthcare and who's from where and why they're here. So I'm glad you're doing it, Kyle, and I'm really appreciate and enjoy the conversation. I'll give you the floor to wrap it up.
Oh, I appreciate that too, Patty. Like I said, and even nervous talking about it, because it's definitely a sensitive issue. But something I sort of tell myself to remind myself, and I'll throw it out there to others as well, is just if I'm frustrated with something and it, strikes anger or something to me, or I have thoughts that are maybe unreasonable, I try to take it back to what's the actual issue here. And it's not a young family looking for a better place to live. It's at the root cause, it's inflation. It's a lack of criminal justice system that we have here. It's the fishery. It's a dozen or 24 other things. But I try to not take the easy route. It's about more than a young family trying to come in and have a better life for themselves. So I'll ask for myself and for other people, try to not judge the book by its cover. Read a couple pages in, and if not, then take a step back and look at what it is you're actually frustrated.
Hopefully people don't feel nervous to talk about whatever's on their mind on this program. That's my overall goal. I'm not in the business of immediate labels and branding and rejection. Hopefully we can have conversations like you and I just had, Kyle. Now, when you hear it, we can all carefully distinguish. It's like what they say about child porn. You know it when you see it. All right, same thing when it comes to racism and bigotry. When it's the starting point, we all hear it, we all understand it. There's no masking it. But real conversations like we're having right now is, I think, a much better play. And I don't care if you're left or right down the middle of the political spectrum. It's a lost art, and we've got to find a way to get it back into public discourse. Kyle, really appreciate you making time for the show this morning. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks, Betty.
All the best, pal. Stay in touch. All right, that was good. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 2. Daryl, you're on the air.
Oh, hi, Paddy. How you doing today?
Best kind. You?
Oh, good. Thank you very much. Paddy, what I'm calling about today, I guess I'll throw this up for Tony Wakeham's consideration and your listening audience as well. I said I've been doing a bit of thinking, and I'm hoping maybe that Mr. Wakeham will consult with people that were against MOU, like the Danny Williams, Jack Harris, Ches Crosby, David Vardy, and one gentleman was on your show. He really caught my attention. He was a doctor of engineering there, and he was talking about how if you increased kilowatts turbines and what would have to be done and the cost, what would be on our part of it. I can't remember his name, but it was really interesting to listen to. You're talking to him about a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, something like that.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that'd be people like that, be good people to talk to, whatever. I can't remember his name, but I found him really, really interesting. And I think not only that, in addition, maybe Mr. Wakeham should have town hall meetings go across the province and educate people on what's really happening behind the scenes. But I would recommend for him to talk to all these players. Now, maybe he's already done it or he's going to do it, but that would be my take on it, and get a better prospect on things and where to go for the future.
Yeah. I mean, and who would hold town hall would be my question. It's a good idea. I mean, going to where people are and speaking to them and answering their questions about something as monumental as this potential deal is important. But who do you think should hold the town hall? Should it be politicians or should it be who?
I think in this case, I think the politicians, like say Tony Wakeham now, they're elected. They just got elected a majority government, so I think their team should hold the town hall meetings personally, and or all political candidates that just got reelected, either Liberal, PC, or NDP. I think it could be do a combination of things, because at the end of the day, we all got to work together on this, because I mean this is a valuable resource, and when you look at it, that Upper Churchill is a gem, and I look at don't sell out the shop when you got a gem. So in other words, what I'm saying is we got to get this right before we make any deals.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Right, and when you look at it in another way, there's lots of ways looking at it. We've come, 56 years since the 1969 agreement. There's only another 15 more years that we'll own Churchill Falls 100%. So there's lots of ways looking at it. We come this far, we also go another 15, then we own the asset totally 100%. But in the same token, if you work out a fantastic deal, that's the way to go as well.
Yeah, I mean, best deal possible is what we all hope for, obviously. And, the whole concept of, well, Quebec says they did great, and we say, or Premier Fury or Jennifer Williams or others say we did great. Look, if there's not a mutually beneficial outcome, there will be no deal. I mean, anyone who's ever sat down to negotiate anything knows that if you're going in with zero-sum thoughts, and there's got to be a winner and a distinct loser, then generally speaking, deals don't get done. So did we do as best possible? I don't know. I really don't. I hope so. And I do welcome this independent review. And I really need to know a little bit more about exactly what we're asking of others. People tell me I'm overcomplicating it. No, it's $500 billion worth of stuff. It's a complicated issue which requires real distinct terms of reference so that we get the review that we're inevitably going to pay for. Daryl, final thoughts to you before I go to the news.
They should probably look at the LeBlanc report. And not only that, where my red flags went up was when the gentleman Michael Wilson resigned from the committee. because of all this as well. So maybe he wants to talk to him as well. So when you get people resigning as well, the red flag's got to go up. But I'll sign off as Patty. We got a jam. Do not sell out the shop when you got a jam.
Fair ball. Appreciate the time, Daryl. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you for your time, and all the best to you and your listening audience from Newfoundland, Labrador.
You too, man. Stay in touch.
All right. Thanks.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Patty.
Bye-bye.
Right
All right, let's get a break for the news. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let us go. Line number 1. Good morning, Donna. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
Okay, how about you?
Good. The reason why I'm calling is because what Kyle had said earlier, and I'm inclined to agree with them. I'm a school bus driver, so the majority of my kids are new Canadians. And these kids and their families have come from really, really hard backgrounds. They didn't voluntarily say, I'm just going to hop on the bus and come to Canada. They had no other choice, because of safety, their lives, the lives of their children. And with regards to the cost, I actually checked on it because I just wanted to know how much people were getting when they came into the country, because like Kyle said, you hear people talking and it's like they think this money is endless. And that's not the truth. The truth of the matter is they have an itemized list of things that, as a new Canadian, they're entitled to have. And that would be linens, some clothing, groceries, a roof over their head, utility bills, like costs for prescriptions, things of that nature, just like any other Canadian. So it's not like they're getting something special. Now, I do notice that some Canadians, new Canadians, are driving like BMWs and Mercedes and stuff, but you got to kind of consider where they come from. I got friends of mine who live in Germany, and they talk about their BMWs. But, I mean, a BMW to them could be like a Honda Civic for us. It's just a car. They don't look at it, I don't think, as wealth and prestige and stuff. It's just that's what they're used to, and that's what they get. I drive a Dodge Dart,
Fair enough. I mean, and plus, who knows who that person is? I mean, for starters, they might have just been here a month, but they might be a cardiac surgeon, right? They might be their friend's car. They might be from Toronto. I mean, we've got a real lumped in, everyone inside or under the exact same umbrella, in the exact same envelope, the exact same life circumstance, when the world is more complicated than that, right? So I'm kind of loath to immediately prejudge whoever for whatever. Maybe I used to be that way, but I find it to be exhausting because very often those types of conversations are steeped in anger and resentment and frustration, which is really tiring stuff. Look, can people ask questions about the safety and security and the vetting of newcomers? 100%. Should we be able to acknowledge that the population grew too quick? We weren't prepared? 100%, because it's true. But the rest of it, I think there's a bit more nuance as opposed to just blanket assertions.
It is. And another thing to consider, too, is we're the highest tax province in Canada, or at least one of them. And there are more new Canadians working in Newfoundland. That means we do have more taxpayers. People don't think about that. It's like if, yes, our population exploded and we weren't prepared for it, but we're getting there. So now we're gonna have more Canadians or new Canadians living in Newfoundland becoming Canadian citizens. We're gonna have more people working in Newfoundland, which is going to be beneficial to all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians because we have more people here. They need to, new Canadians need to expand because I live outside of St. John's and there's nobody down here. And there's houses being built, so We need more people down here too, right?
Well, I mean, again, and this is not a political statement. Let's just do some math. We just heard from Stats Canada that the first time in the country's history we have a province where the number of people 65 years of age and older is now 25+%. And that's not a bad thing. Yep. That's just a real thing. The birth rate is way behind the death rate. So at some point, we just have to be realistic here. Who's going to do the work? Who's going to take the jobs? Who's going to expand the tax base? The numbers are important about whether it be as refugees or from Ukraine or from Syria or international students or permanent residents. The numbers are important, but the math is also crystal clear. To support the province and take the jobs, whether it be skilled trades or otherwise, or working in healthcare or whatever, we're going to have a pragmatic approach to immigration. And yes, the numbers are important. Just pretending that we can open the doors. And another thing, it's not up to the province. Immigration is strictly, insofar as numbers go, is strictly federal government's responsibility and authority. You know, we can have politicians here say, we want more of this, we want more international students, we want more people on the pathway to permanent residency, but that's provincial pleas. The numbers are ultimately up to the feds.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, like you said, Pierre Trudeau did it. Justin Trudeau did it. It's a trend, you know. I don't know if nepotism and trying to one-up each other, but, you know, whatever. I feel for the families. I really do, because a lot of people, they just look at them as new Canadians, but I know they're here for a reason. They're not here just because they want to be here. They picked the place, obviously, but, you know, they're here because they needed to save their lives and the lives of their children, you know. And you know, if people were a little more empathetic, it would have a better outcome, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the bigger problems in this province regarding newcomers is when there are available supports, the real trick is whether or not they stay. I mean, that's long been the major concern here is, you know, if they see a bigger community representative of where they're from and or their culture, and then they leave. So, you know, we put in the effort, we try to create a welcoming environment, we try to give them the supports they need to go to work and to learn the language. But if they leave, then that's as big a problem as if and when they come, just from my personal perspective.
And I've seen that too. I had a family of 9 children. Mom and Dad, they were here from Afghanistan last year, and they were gone. And I asked one of their friends, I said, where did they go? And they said, oh, they moved to Toronto. Yeah. And I'm like, oh. That was disheartening, because I mean, these people are amazing, you know, and I'm like, that was really sad to see like 11 people packing up and just moving to Toronto. And, you know,
again, not every newcomer to Canadian or to Canada is a good person. Not every domestically homegrown Canadian is a good person. So again, when the generalizations outweigh the nuance, I don't know what we're doing anymore. So again, not everyone's great, regardless of where you're from, and not everyone's terrible, regardless of where you're from. There's much more in the middle of that conversation than there is on the outskirts.
I just want people to keep their hearts open and not to be too closed off when we see new Canadians, because these people are in a country they have no clue. They don't know how people are going to react to them. They don't know anything about our culture. We just need to embrace them and, you know, at least try to make them feel comfortable.
And what I will add to it is people talk about assimilation and learn the language. Yeah, learning the language is important. I mean, to not be able to speak and understand and read and write English is going to be a problem for them as much as it's a problem for anybody else. And on top of that, you know, when you talk about assimilation and Canadian values, I don't think that's an illegitimate conversation to understand Canadian culture, to try to be part of it, in addition to keeping your own traditions and beliefs. You know, some of the things are, you know, like female genitalia mutilation. Problem, against the law. You know, things like when people point to things like defecating in the street. Nobody should do that, regardless of where you're from. So understanding Canadian culture, trying to be part of it, is a legitimate conversation to be having here. You know, like we talk about losing our culture. The people responsible for preserving our culture, whether it be Newfoundland, Labrador culture or Canadian culture, are people who already live it. It's our responsibility to embrace it. It's our responsibility to preserve it. But anyway, Donna, I'm glad you made time for the show. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Patty. And just one other thing, real quick. As a new Canadian, when you're in 4 lanes of traffic, that's not an opening to do a U-turn.
Nope.
Just to let you know.
Yep.
You may want to follow the guidelines because that is dangerous as hell.
Yeah, and the little stick on the left of the steering column is the indicator.
Exactly. Please use it as often as you can. And it doesn't have to be a new Canadian.
Nope.
It could be someone driving a Ford.
Absolutely.
We just don't know.
You got that right. Donna, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go. Line number 4. Charlie, you're on the air. Oh.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
Patty, that caller you had, I think it was the last one there on immigration. I thought she did a really, really good job of making an appeal to Newfoundlanders and Canadians to be more accepting and so on. I thought that was one of the better calls I've heard on immigration for a long time. Anyway, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Sure. I thought she was very thoughtful. I thought Kyle earlier, who had questions and concerns, was also very good. So, again, you know, it doesn't make you a bad person to have questions about immigration. It doesn't. But having a little bit more of an understanding about exactly who and why and how we're talking about how someone arrived here, what they do and their background and their story is probably a little bit more helpful than just everyone is the same and everyone is either bad or not welcomed or whatever. Anyway, I thought they were both pretty good.
Sometimes, too, like what happened in Ukraine and in Syria, sometimes you have to take people in at short notice, and you can't always be prepared like you'd like to be with housing and doctors, medical care, and so on. So I think that fact that sometimes governments get blamed a little bit, even though they can do more. But sometimes it just happens, and you have to take immediate action. Anyway, that's not what I call about.
Okay.
Patty, the Blue Jays, I got to mention them. I've been a Dodger fan since the 50s. That'll tell you how old I am. And now I'm faced with, which I was wishing would happen, that they would meet in the World Series. But who the hell do I cheer for, you know?
Toronto.
Okay.
Well, you cheer for whoever you like. That's the beauty of sports for me is, look, inside my core group of buddies that we've known each other all our lives, most everybody's a sports fan, and there's no, like, I don't care if you're a Leafs fan, a Dodgers fan, Philadelphia Eagles fan, none of that matters to me. I enjoy watching the game, and I think it's a great matchup. The Dodgers are super tough. The Jays have their hands full. Home field advantage needs to be an advantage, but I cannot wait to watch the World Series.
No, me neither. Patty, just want to comment on the election again and the aftermath. I was hoping for a minority government that the independents and a couple of NDP would hold the balance, but that didn't happen. I guess I'm kind of disgusted with what did happen with the two major parties just promising us the world and really with no money to back it up, more boring and really extensive boring too. And in light of the fact that we are spending all that money, that $1 billion, to finance that debt, I thought it was irresponsible of both parties. And I think it's time Newfoundlanders woke up, and we've got immediate needs, healthcare and roads and so on. But we've got a responsibility to get our finances in order, not only for the future but for now. And it seems like I was glad for a change in government too. But when the PC leader came out acting as if climate change didn't exist, we had no fires, we had no droughts, farmers are not in trouble, water supply is low, and then acting as if he could just borrow at will. I thought it was really irresponsible, but I guess we'll see what happens. Maybe they have to talk like that to get in, but I'm not impressed by that new leader on the basis of that at all.
Well, they actually had promising of additional spending to the tune of $284.6 million. You know, I think it's a fair question once again is where's all the money coming from? And we can get answers like, well, some money that the past government spent on this, we're going to refocus it here, whatever. Yeah, but that still doesn't, square the circle of just the level of debt and the level of deficit in this province, which really does need some attention. You know, the reason why they don't talk about it when they campaign is because you can't get anyone to vote for austerity. You can't get anyone to to vote for, holding the purse strings a little tighter than we have in the past. People want what they want when they want it. Basically, I'm really not a big fan of generalizations, but we're all pretty petulant. Right?
Yeah.
We want what we want when we want it. And if someone as a politician is campaigning on not delivering as to my petulance, then they don't get my vote, which is a really, I was going to say stupid, but a pretty flawed way to approach it. But c'est la vie, that's where we are.
Well, at least the NDP and Jim Dinn tried to cost what was happening and said, look, we'll pay for that with these programs. To me, that's a more responsible approach. Some people will say, well, he can say that because he won't get in, but anyway, I guess we'll let it go. I think we have to get a little more sophisticated in this province as to always supporting one of those major parties, one or the other, because I don't think they're much different in outlook anyways. I want to comment on the Israeli ceasefire. Do you remember when Biden had his ceasefire over there, Patty?
Yeah.
He had a ceasefire deal, and it didn't last. I didn't hear all the hullabaloo and a great peacemaker he was at that time, and I didn't hear it called a peace deal. I heard it called a ceasefire. This is so much out to lunch. It's a joke that this peace over there. It's just not even close, and already it's being broken by both sides. I just find it really odd, some of the commentary, like Trump, he's the only one who could pull this off because he's in with the Arab leaders and so on. He's in with the Arab leaders not because of policy, but because of a transactional nature. He wants their money, and they want his support in various things. I don't think the Arab leaders care that much about the Palestinians, but they have to kowtow to the masses. A lot of people who do care about them over there, their own people. But anyway, it's just that people seem to be giving credit where credit is not due. Where it's a ceasefire and a very limited one at that. There is no peace until there's a two-state solution, and those settlers start to move off that land. I watched Fifth Estate last night, taped of what was happening on the West Bank since the October the thing in Israel, and it's an internal war there. Settlers are basically abusing the local population with the support of the Israeli army, and you don't hear much about this, But I don't know if you want to comment on this or not.
Well, first things first. For any lasting peace, begins with a ceasefire, is then closely followed by the return of every single living and dead hostage by both sides, and then we talk about disarming Hamas and who can govern inside of the Gaza Strip, the attention to settlers' establishments on the West Bank, a real pragmatic, detail by detail, piece by piece, as opposed to just pretending because someone said there's peace in the Middle East doesn't mean there is. Abraham Accords, good thing, but support of the Qataris and the Saudis and stuff. To your point, the transactional nature of all this is clear as mud, right? So if we're talking about peace as some sort of real estate deal, that's not what peace is. I mean, I think everybody really in their quiet moments understands that. And as long as bombs are flying and people are getting killed, to call it peace is maybe just a complete misunderstanding of what peace actually means. But lay down your arms, disarm Hamas, they cannot govern, return the hostages, and go from there.
Well, imagine if St. John's, 90% of the homes were gone, the roads were barred off, you couldn't get food and medicine in, and people were starving to death and then being bombed daily. Imagine any city in that situation. That's what happened in Gaza. And the Israelis, they used the war as an excuse. They wanted to empty Gaza of these Palestinians. That was one of the reasons they tried to starve them. And when that didn't work, because you remember Trump was talking about let's make it a Riviera and so on, and will these other nations accept all these refugees and so on? When they didn't get to their goal there, they accepted what we have now, which is, to me, not very much at all, except a limited ceasefire. But anyway, I'll leave it at that, I guess.
Fair enough. Appreciate the time, Charlie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. And so is Sarah still out there? Sarah was sitting in for Dave Williams for a second. Just another quick note. Am I correct in saying that we will get to hear Dan Shulman and Buck Martinez and Hazel May call the World Series? I believe that is the case, right? Because in years past it wasn't. Fox would take it and then we'd be shut out as Canadian viewers. To that end, like I watch a bunch of different ball teams play baseball throughout the course of the year, and I hear their commentators and play-by-play guys and their color guys and stuff. Shulman and Buck, and I guess I'm obviously biased here as a Jays fan, but they're amongst, if not the best in the business. Include Hazel May and Arden and Shai and all the rest of them. The Sportsnet coverage of baseball is absolutely fantastic, isn't it? Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's see here. Let's go to line number 3. Rob, you're on the air.
Morning, Patty.
Morning.
Hi, first-time caller, long-time listener.
Welcome to the show.
Okay, last time you and I spoke, I handed over you a furry little bundle of joy named Dexter.
Oh, good to have you on the show, Rob. I mean, Dexter's something else, boy. Really is.
He really is. There's something else. Patty, that's not what I called about.
Okay.
Just sitting here listening to some of your calls this morning about the, I guess, immigration and new Canadians and whatnot. And I just wanted to, I guess, share a little bit of my family's experience. About a little over 2 years ago, my son, who was about 19 at the time, him and I were in St. John's, and he said, "Dad, I want to pop into a barbershop and get a haircut." So we went into the 1949 barbershop on Torbay Road, and it was truly life-changing for our family because ever since my son's been a boy, the little boy, he said he wanted to be a barber, and we didn't think that was very, it's a different dream for a kid, for especially a bright kid who had started university and whatnot. Anyway, he met one of the owners of the shop there, a gentleman from Colombia. And then we found out that his business partner was from Ghana. Both of them had come to Newfoundland to study, fell in love with the place, fell in love with two local ladies, got married, had families. And contrary to what we hear lots of times about immigrants coming in and being a drain on our society, these two gentlemen who own this now chain of barbershops, as well as other businesses here, are huge contributors to our economy. My son, from that day forward, has never left the family of the 1949 barbershops, and he is now 2 years into a very successful career. The whole group has become friends of our family. They have, I think, 6 barbershops right now across the metro region and one in Gander. And they're just creating employment, giving back to the community. An amazing story, really, of what people who left countries for different reasons to come to Canada, not to live off the Canadian, generosity, but to appreciate what we have here, but to give back so much.
And there's plenty of stories just like it, right? I mean, there really is.
Yeah. Absolutely. To some of the comments about the vehicles people drive, one of the owners actually, in addition to the barbershop, so these people are very well educated as well. One's a nurse, the other guy's got business degrees, master's degrees. They employ not only immigrants, but permanent residents. My son is a local. There's at least one more local Newfoundlander working in the company, but they are buying vehicles at auction. They repair and get those vehicles affordable to newcomers into Canada, and some of the vehicles that were discussed by some of the previous callers and the comments, and I understand and totally agree with what everyone says. You need to know the full story. A lot of the vehicles that this gentleman purchases at auction are higher-end vehicles that need repairs, and he gets those back on the road. And I just felt like I wanted to share that side of the story to sort of back up what the previous two callers had mentioned, that it's not just all drain on our system for having these people come in here.
No, there's not. Are there some people who spend extended amount of times on reliance on government monies? Yes. Are there more that don't? Also, yes. Rob, really appreciate the time. Dexter says hello.
Sounds good. Thanks very much.
Thanks, buddy. All the best.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Right.
So that's the guy who's the breeder that we bought Dexter from. Awesome. Where to from here? David Williams. Pick a number, any number. And that is a 4? Fine. Let's go to line number 4. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning,
Hi there.
Patty. I'm the lady who called in a few weeks ago about living next door to the trap house downtown, and Mike Murray was kind enough to call you afterwards and give a little bit of advice on the bylaws of the city.
Yep, I remember the calls.
Okay, so after much pressure, we had a meeting yesterday with City Hall, and the mayor was there. The city inspector that was there, and also the solicitor for the city, and a few of the neighbors went down and tried to get to the bottom of how we go about closing down this trap house that's been terrorizing the neighborhood. We were told yesterday by Danny or the mayor, I should say, I guess, that the information we were given by Mike Murray is not true, and their hands are tied. There's nothing they can do. It was through the Liberal government, the legislation put in place, that the city's hands are tied. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, I've sent you reports and pictures since July of broken windows and garbage and dirt and filth and noise and on and on and on and on. And they say, well, everything's a process. And I said, well, how long of a process? It can take months. It can take years for the city to do something. I said, you got to be kidding me. Why can't you change your timeline on this? And they say, no, there's nothing we can do. So I would hope if Mr. Murray is listening, maybe he could give us some advice or reach out to some of the neighbors and give us some guidance on what we can do. But, according to them, their hands are tied. There's really nothing they can do. And if they do something, whether it's give a fine for garbage or noise or a place that's broken windows and boarded up and all this, it could take months and months and months. And I don't get that, Patty, because if I was parked illegally or you were parked illegally or whatever, the city would be there lickety-split.
Yeah, I mean, if I leave my car on the street and fall asleep watching a hockey game during the wintertime, I get a ticket. Okay, a couple of things. So the city, to me, and Mayor Breen or anybody else is welcome to call, they seem to be splitting a hair here. Because when they reacted to Mike Murray's call, they kind of said that we don't have the authority to deal with the criminality. But no one said that. No one said that the city can go arrest a drug dealer. What the Act allows is if the level of disrepair and or garbage and or noise and whatever, they do have some authority here. Now, the process may take time because, lots of things take time, but I really do think they have more authority than they're letting on. So, and again, nobody suggested that a bylaw officer, would leave writing tickets downtown for people who are parked and their meters expired is just all of a sudden going to walk into a trap house or a drug den unarmed and make arrests. Nobody said that. What we're saying is that they can indeed begin the process to deal with the problem, whether it be from the landlord on down. If the tenant happens to be a drug dealer, then that's just gravy for trying to help clean up a neighborhood. That's my understanding of it all anyway.
Well, you're right. And I guess the true problem here lies in whether it's Home Connect, the gathering place, and the landlord. Those are three elements we're having to deal with. Because these people, the landlord's giving a list by these people on who to put in there. It's housing for profit, and it shouldn't be housing for profit because it's taxpayers, it's donors, it's everybody who's making this happen. And for this landlord to get, $3,800 to $4,000 a month and have these people, I don't know why there's not being screened properly. I asked those questions to Home Connect, and I was told the same as the landlord, quote, unquote, they have to live somewhere. Well, never mind that. What about neighborhoods that are terrorized? What about, people can't go into work, children can't get in on the bus because of this, shutdown. It's been, Patty, it's been horrible to live like this.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And of course it is. For some people it'd be terrorizing because you never know what comes with that type of unit, because like every time that we see the RCMP or the RNC display the wares taken in a seizure regarding drugs, is drugs and money and weapons. So obviously people will be fearful when there's that level of drug related activity close by where they live or in their neighborhood or next door. Anything else while we have this morning?
Yes, I think the major goal here is to get the government, and hopefully you're listening, Mr. Wakeham, we need to shut down that these slum landlords are getting profit to have these people live in their house and terrorize neighborhoods and do nothing about it. That's why they're not renting out to international students or families or people who really need it. It's because they're making tons of money from the government.
That's certainly part of it, I would assume. And, landlords are part of this conversation, and they kind of get off a bit scot-free here as well, because if they knowingly, maybe not upon the initial rental agreement, but when it becomes well understood that one of their properties is one of these so-called trap houses, they're part of the conversation here. If they legitimately want to be upstanding members of the landlord community, even though I don't even know if that's the thing, then they have some authority here too to begin the process, to be involved with the city, to engage in said process, to try to get rid of that criminal element. Of course they do. I've got to get going to the break, but I appreciate your time. Keep me in the loop.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's go ahead and take that break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go. Line number 5. Mike, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
Patty, I'm happy with the election results.
Okay.
At least we got the Liberals gone, but now I'm wondering what the PCs are going to do, because if they're going to take the information that the Liberal Party was given from their advisors and the lack of enforcement of our rules and regulations and everything with regards to tendering and purchasing, all of this stuff has got to be brought under control, and which is big time, which is costing us a fortune in money that we don't have, and is making our debt a lot worse. So as far as I'm concerned, like the Controller General, the Chief Purchasing Agent, and into the Auditor General, all of these people are watchdogs that should be watching all of this spending and reporting to the politicians and that and whatever. So the people that are advised of the government, like on the ferry systems and everything else, we all know what disaster it is or what it's become. All of these people. So are we going to have the same people there into these positions that are going to advise the same government, and we're going to wind up with the same old? Or how far are the PCs going to go and change everything? And a lot of things have got to be changed. We have to have penalties for people who break our tendering laws and our purchasing laws, and just giving out money, invoices gone in before the POs are issued. You know, like we've got so much there. And then we've got the Commerce Group who have total control over the infrastructure of our healthcare system at exorbitant amounts of money. They're big business. We're never going to get rid of them. But we got to have the people there who can control them. Like recently, there was some new equipment needed. But the top set, the Commerce Group in the government, said, oh no, we'll supply that. Never went to tender, never went to nothing. Just Commerce Group bought it and delivered it to the site. And all of this stuff going on at exorbitant prices. And then we've got equipment there with no representatives in Newfoundland, brought in from the mainland. Like, everything that's going on here is a complete waste of money that we can save a lot of money by having good, competent people in our watchdog positions. So if the PCs are just going to go along with the existing infrastructure, and they're going to keep on doing the same things and same mistakes, well, it don't matter who's in there. And this is what a lot of people got the same mind, that, look, don't matter who's in there, they're going to do the same thing. So are the PCs going to hold up to that? But I'm hoping not, and I hope they're going to make a clean slate and launch some investigation into spending. Like in the ferry system now, those repairs and that and stuff that never had to be done to the new bills has gone up now to $18 million. And now we just had a new generator order for one of them, a generator gone by a mechanical contract for electrical parts. Like, they got no comprehension of the proper spending and that, of getting the best dollar for our buck. And it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said there, I can point out so much wrongdoing, so much money that can be saved by just following our rules and regulations. But to me, the only way to do this and get people to follow our rules and regulations for a democratic country, not to have somebody into power that says you're buying this from this person, it's going to be delivered by that person, it's going to that distributor, and they're making the profit from it all, which is not right. So anyway, I got big hopes for the PCs that they're going to initiate a lot of changes that need to be done. And it has to be done by somebody, or else we're going to be in dire straits and desperation. Right now, we got the Compass Groups there leading our Eastern Health. We're not going to get rid of it. They're province-wide. They got total control over all the infrastructure, the executives and everybody else. They're all doing what they're told to do. The one thing is that to make the most profit, take the most profit out of Newfoundland, most money out, and give it to people outside of the province. And we're here struggling and hurting and everything else, where these people's profits are soaring. So, like I said, we got to have the controls to control it. We have the policies, but they're not followed. So how do we go about it? So, like I said, I'm hoping that the PCs are going to really do a thorough investigation into a lot of this spending. And I hope he brings forward the report on the Compass Group back when John Hagee and the COVID thing came in. He was supposed to release the new study and report on what the Compass Group were costing. It was squashed. Nobody knows where it went to, what's done with it. And I hope they resurrect it and inform the people exactly of what the Compass Group is costing the people, because right now there's nobody in government knows how much money is going into this province.
Yeah, I know. The Compass Group issue, I still can't get anyone at NL Health Services or anyone in senior levels of government to even speak to the issues that you've brought to me via email and here on the program, and I don't really know why, to be honest. But anyway, anything else while we have you this morning, Mike?
The thing is that I put in some requests. I think the 6 months now, I sent you, I think, copies of it where it's been delayed, a copy of the Compass Group signed copy. They've been delaying it now for 6 months to get the new Compass contract. And I haven't been able to get them so far. And I figured that they were deliberately delaying it before the election. But somebody also in government with the questions that I asked, and I said this before, and it's unbelievable, that somebody into the government had all my emails directing to government.nl.ca blocked, that I could not send the emails to anybody in government because of the questions that I ask about legality questions concerning, like, is it legal for the government to direct money into a contractor's bank account that is in the hands of the government, like the tills in the government and all the restaurants and cafeterias and everything else all the cash goes into the company's bank account. Why? This is already in our general revenue account. They got it. Why are they turning this all over with them, including the HST? So where does it go to? How do we get back to the government? Nobody can answer any of these questions.
And they're fair questions.
Yeah,
I'm only interrupting because we just hit the news break time, so 30 seconds to wrap it up before I have to go.
All right, carry on as if I were normal and you do the same.
I'll give it my best shot. Thanks, Mike. All right,
Thanks, bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break for the news. When we come back, tons of time for you. There's a caller there wants to talk about teacher red tape. I'm curious to hear what that means. And then we're going to talk about newcomers and population growth and whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Veronica, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
Bear with me.
No problem.
First-time caller. I want to talk about our education system. I've been in the education system now. I'm a student assistant. I've been at this now for 26-plus years. And for the things that I see and how the government never spoke anything about any of this in their debate, our schools are overcrowded. And teachers, IRTs, TLAs, and student assistants as well, we're struggling to keep up with the demands that we have to face. We can't get student assistants because they have to leave their car somewhere else to get on a bus to do alternate transportation. And it's not always a feasible place to leave your vehicle, or there's no parking. The school I'm in is 11 years old. We have approximately 750 students from K to 6. Right now, we have 33 children on alternate transportation. That's 3 buses. We are supposed to have 11 student assistants. We still have 3 vacant positions, which leaves us getting burnt out. You need a second person for certain things when you're dealing with these children. You can't always get that second person. You're going to an IRT or a teacher for your help. So I don't know what the education system or the government is going to do with our education system because they haven't spoken anything about it.
Which is really surprising to me. I mean, we just went through an 18-month exercise of the Education Accord. They talked about it for a heartbeat and then no further comment on it. We've seen the academic trend outcomes for 20-plus years. They're heading in the wrong direction. We've seen an uptick in violence. We've seen an uptick in chronic absenteeism. We've seen classroom composition and class size be questioned repeatedly by people who are not in government, but yet very little to no conversation during the campaign. I just don't get it. I mean, if we're talking about the long-term viability and success and profitability of this province, if we're not focusing on education, then we're just missing the boat. I truly don't understand
Well,
it.
Patty, in my opinion, a lot of our children don't have an advocate. Someone has to get up and speak for them. I know one city school here, junior high school, if the student assistant is off, there's no student assistant on that alternate transportation bus. That's 5 junior high children who do not get to go to school that day because there's no support on the bus. They need the support on the bus. My bus alone, I have 11 students. One bus with 10, another one with 12. One student assistant. We have special needs on these buses. We have children who seizure, children with anxiety problems. It's unbelievable. And there's no one speaking out for the children, and it's causing teachers and everyone in the education system to burn out. I mean, these are our future leaders, these children. If we're not treating them right from K to 6, what's going to happen when they get to junior high? When they can go on to PIP whenever they want to or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So I don't know. Just putting it out there, but we need something done with our system desperately.
We do. And, I sometimes think there's maybe a little bit of fear amongst politicians on this front, and I'll tell you why. If one of the significant issues is class composition, then I think they're probably wary of offending one segment of society or another, when in fact addressing what teachers and administrators and families and students already know is one of the big issues insofar as everything: absenteeism, violence, burnout, academic outcomes. If they're afraid to talk about it because of that, then that's not good enough. It's simply not good enough.
Okay.
Acknowledging what the reality is probably very helpful if you're a politician. But I again, to your point, not having it as a key focus during the campaign is just mind-boggling to me.
Oh, most definitely. Now, the school I'm in, like I said, it's only 11 years old. Over this summer, we had to go through renovations. We had to take our library, change it, reduce it to make 2 more classrooms. Plus, we had to take our IT room and turn that into a classroom. We have 4 special needs units in this school. We need a 5th one. We haven't got enough room or support in the 4 units to deal with the issues that we have to deal with in the run of the day. It's ludicrous. And when I messaged you after the political debate back on October the 8th, I also messaged Hogan and Wakeham and Mr. Dinn, and I heard back from nobody. I even gave him my phone number. Right? So it's horrendous. Anyway, that's my spiel for the morning.
And I'm glad you made it. Appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too, Veronica.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 4. Peter, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to say I just heard the last part of a conversation with a caller about what was called the population explosion. So I went online, I found a CBC article that mentioned it, and I went to another site, and there was some population statistics, and it said early 2000s, our population was almost 570. Then it dropped to about 510. Now we're up to about 550. So I don't see that as a population explosion. It's barely a population recovery.
Yeah, I think when people make that reference, I can't speak for everyone who says those words, but I think we look at the population of the country. The population of this province has, ebbs and flows. It's never been too far away from where we are now. And there were some reasons why we saw mass exodus at one point. I mean, even just look at something like the COD moratorium. But yeah, the population is in recovery. That's a good word.
Yeah, now I'm going from memory, but in 1970, the population was about 500,000. St. John's businessman gave a speech to Rotary, and his take on it, his argument was, in order for Newfoundland to be prosperous, it could only sustain 300,000 people, and the government should convince 200,000 people to leave. Now, I saw statistics 1987, that in Canada there were 750,000 Newfoundland-born Canadians, but only 500,000 lived in the province. Now that's like 40 years ago or so. I would guess roughly there's probably 1 million Newfoundland-born Canadians. Add in the extension, the immediate families, and we're up close to 2 million. So a population explosion, we're a long way from population recovery. And then if it just take another minute there, I saw a letter published about business people supporting the Lower Churchill project. And one of the arguments they had was it would bring Newfoundlanders back. Now, in that time, since 1970, we've had mega project after mega project after mega project, and it just hasn't happened.
Yeah, because if they come back, when the job is done, they leave unless there's another job to be had. It's probably very accurate.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to make a guess. I haven't really studied it. It's not my field. But I think the mixture of the New Canadians, I remember university, and the hospital, the staff, the doctors were from all over the world. And it gave the university and the medical community international credibility. So all these New Canadians here give the city international credibility. A lot of those, though, are in the service industry, low-wage jobs. So one of the reasons I think, and myself included, why the Newfoundlanders who stay here till their old age is they own their house. So they get a pension, a government pension, whatever, and they can manage. Now, these new Canadians, they're going to have a family. They're not going to get their house without a mortgage. And if the economy drops again, they have to pay their mortgage. They have to sell. They have to move. So I think population explosion, I think that's outright misleading.
Yeah, and again, I can't speak for anyone but myself. I think I hear a lot of reference to national population, which we've now cleared 40 million. But of course, the population that we've seen grow dramatically are in the major cities, not the rest of the country.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah.
As even Northeast Avalon, a lot of people here, they're not, Northeast Avalon, St. John's, CBS people. They're coming from rural Newfoundland. They're coming in because they want the opportunity. Their children want to go to school. They have medical services. And so there's a migration to what we call urban here as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's reasons why people might move into the urban centres, which once again is happening right across the country. For young families, it might be access to services. For older people, it might be access to their young families that move from rural into the city. For others, it might be access in close proximity to healthcare. So again, there's a bunch of reasons why populations are growing in cities and are being reduced in rural parts of the country. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, that's all I have to say. One more thing, just to be a little dramatic, is that article on the government is just pure propaganda. They're not publishing the stats. They're not telling the background. They're not telling the factors that will affect the population. But if that's what the government releases, that's the only thing the media can report on, unless they challenge it. Anyway, Patty, thanks very much.
I appreciate your time, Peter. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, break time. Let me come back. Follow-up caller on heat pump program. I believe this was the guy that the heat pump, and particularly the electrical hookup, was not done correctly and a bunch of things associated with it. We'll get that follow-up. Then we're talking about Moose License, a school out in Kings Cove, and whatever you want to talk about. Welcome back. Let us go. Line number 1. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
I've been listening to the immigration aspects of the show and some very good points being made. Why I'm calling is what I see is, and I observe a lot in society, I really do. And I look at why people have the behavior or they feel the way they do. I look at the big picture. And I look at around the province, we have a 1% vacancy. And we have our own that are homeless. Seniors are getting evicted, okay, which they are. And there's no one there to speak up for these seniors. Actually, I had a family member that got evicted. And what they got evicted over was is just unbelievable. And they're no trouble. They paid their rent on time. They got evicted. Now, my question is, who's going to get that apartment that they were evicted from? And not only that, like when you got people that are going into St. John's for medical care, they can't get housing if they got to stay like a month or 2 months for there's nowhere for them to stay. Yep. And then we have the past government that talked about housing. There's been no housing built for people to move into. So that creates a whole scenario right there where we're bringing in other people to the province. I don't have a problem with that at all. But first and foremost, shouldn't we be looking after our own?
I'm never really entirely sure what that means. Like you jumble a lot of stuff into that. Like coming in for healthcare, what role do landlords and or the vacancy rate play in when someone has to travel for healthcare? Like,
well, okay.
When would they ever staying in rentals?
when you bring in mass, when we only got 1% vacancy, and we're bringing in mass immigration, like where are the people supposed to live?
Well, the 1%
Everybody,
vacancy
like-
is the city of St. John's number. It's not the whole province.
I'm aware of that, yes. And we see people moving on the outskirts. And we also see housing prices that has doubled. Like the younger generation don't have a chance in owning a home or wanting to come and live here, work here, live here, and find housing. And then you have like Eastern Health went and put a clinic for immigration, opened up a new clinic for immigration.
Some of that's about language.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay. However, we got people that are being hired into hospitals, okay, that can't speak English at all, got no English language.
Doing what?
Nursing.
I know. Like Dave just said to me, I know there's certainly been some recruitment of personal care attendants that probably don't have a firm, full grasp of the English language yet. But in healthcare, as healthcare professionals, otherwise, I'm not so sure that's a thing. I mean, do they struggle with English as a second?
22 was hired in a hospital. Okay, this is and then. Like, what is our own staff having to train them? And if they can't speak English or write English or understand English, how dangerous is that to prescribing medication? Really, like
you don't
in
think
hindsight.
You don't think that doctors and nurse practitioners, because if we're talking about someone who has the ability, the authority to make out a prescription, you're suggesting they're not actively doing everything possible to learn the language? Really? Doctors?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they're being brought in there. Okay? Being brought in there, and they're being put up on medical floors, surgery, everywhere. They're giving out medication. Nurses are being hired from other countries that can't speak English, spell. And how dangerous is that for giving out medication? And not only that, I mean, there are good people that are immigrants. I'm not saying there's not, and there are bad people in our province that are our culture. Okay, but breaking laws and everything else. We also see. Immigrants coming in that are not vetted properly, like you said. They're not vetted properly, so that are falling through the cracks and getting in the provinces across the country. What? And they don't abide by some don't abide by laws. I've been at an intersection multiple times and seen them pulling U-turns at an intersection. So, like, if we went over there, we'd have to follow their rules. So why is it that the police and the government are allowing people to come in here and do as they please under their... Why?
Traffic violations?
I had
Is that what we're talking about?
I had a guy pick up a big rock, I mean a large rock, and throw at my vehicle as I was driving. Just missed and come in, hit my vehicle, just missed my windshield, come in and hit me. I jumped out. There was a police officer on the side of the road. I said to the police officer, I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "That man right there, he could see him." I said, "He just threw a rock at my vehicle, and it just missed me." coming in, break in through the windshield.
Yeah,
You know, that officer never done nothing. He said, there's nothing I can do. I said, what's your job? I said, isn't your job to serve and protect? But if I had done that, if I had thrown a rock at your vehicle, I'd be arrested right away.
So are you suggesting that there was nothing done because for some reason yourself and the police officer were able to determine that that person was an immigrant or newcomer just by looking at him?
He was.
How do you know?
I can tell that. You can tell. He was having, God love him, the man was having a mental health crisis, okay? And probably coming from a war-torn country, it all boils back to the mental health of our own, of immigrants coming in, okay? And they're not getting no services. They're just being bought in there. And
so
it's just not right.
On one hand, I'm being told that they get no services, and on the other hand, I'm being told they get too much. So I'm pretty sure there's somewhere in between all of that. That's actually the reality on the ground. And anyway, I'm taking off for the news, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Patty, I wouldn't call in and just say these things. Patty, I've witnessed it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Thanks. All right, time for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to City Councillor Tom Davis. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
So I want to start with just some public announcements before we get into the meat of what I call to talk about. Sorry, buddy, I'm just driving. I'm trying to pull over. So the first thing is this Friday is actually World Polio Day, and the Rotary clubs of Newfoundland are getting together to raise money to continue the eradication of polio, and we're doing it down at the Mayor Brown Center with the Newfoundland Regiment game. And you can actually go to the Rotary Club of Avalon Northeast. There's a link right on there. If you just Google Rotary World Polio Day Newfoundland Regiment, you'll be brought right to a link, and that link you can buy tickets there, and $5 for every ticket will go towards eradicating polio, and so people are aware of it. That's then doubled by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so that basically means the $5 becomes $15. And, for people's reference, there's endemic polio in Pakistan and Afghanistan. But unfortunately, due to low vaccination rates, there's outbreaks of a more minor version of polio, but it can actually, by transmission through a low vaccinated population, it can actually recover its ability to paralyze people. So eradicating it is important. Continued vaccination is also important. So, you have to spread that message, but we'd love to see a lot of people out to watch the regiment. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be down there.
Fair enough. And to that end, it has nothing to do with polio, but here come the St. John Sea Dogs, and the head coach is local Travis Crickett.
There you go. Another good reason to go down. Kill 3 birds with 1 stone.
There you go.
This Friday is also Go Blue Day, part of the Miles for Smiles Foundation, and we're asking people to take a picture of themselves wearing blue on that day, post it to your socials. You can tag Miles for Smiles NL businesses as well. I know last year Stingray did it. They took a picture, so hopefully we'll get people a big showing, to support the prevention of child support and awareness, and to also October is also Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we had the great announcement that the Kids in Know program will be throughout all the schools, but we want to encourage people to become informed, because unfortunately, for the most part, the abuse doesn't happen in schools. It's great to educate the children, but we need a community-wide awareness and for people to be educated and realize that unfortunately a lot of times it's people you know and people you trust that are doing these evil acts, and only as a community can we come together to support but also prevent.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to weigh in on the call and the residents. I didn't know there was a meeting yesterday between the mayor and legal and some residents downtown about the public prosecutor, Mr. Murray, who's called in and been calling regularly, and is very informative, and it's great to hear his voice. And I listened very intently to his call and went back and re-listened to it, and during the election, I'm not one of these politicians that goes around making promises during the election, but one of the things that I wanted to do after the election was to have an all-of-council approach to helping to make the city safer, cleaner, that was use whatever powers we had and whatever resources we had and bring the community on it. And when I listened to what he had to say, I thought, that looks like something that we should be able to build upon. I know that the official position of the city has kind of been, well, it's not really the way it was intended, but I do want to have a conversation about it, because I do believe that working in conjunction with the RNC and the province, which is something we desperately need. One thing, my observation, and I don't understand it, is for whatever reason the province does not seem to work all that closely. I mean, there's cooperation, and we were building something, but for whatever reason there isn't that partnership that I believe the city should have with the province. It's capital city, and I know there are things we can do together working hand in hand. And I do believe that although it doesn't allow us to, the act does not allow us to, sections that Mr. Murray, I think, is 275 and up, didn't allow us to directly curtail criminal activity, but it's definitely a tool that we should be able to use. I understand the challenges with sending employees, but again, he addressed that and said that you can contract out to the RNC. So I think, I really want to push that, and I do believe that we owe it to the residents. They don't feel safe, and my daughter lived downtown. I saw it firsthand. I couldn't wait for her to move out of there. She's back down there, but not down quite into the heat of it. And I really do believe we have to do better. And I know it's not easy. None of this stuff is easy, but I wouldn't mind, wading into this conversation as a counselor and as a citizen of the city.
Yeah, I mean, when the city responded to Mike Murray's comments, I felt there was a little bit of hair splitting going on, because Mike Murray, nor anybody else that I've heard, is suggesting that all of a sudden the city has armed bylaw officers trained in policing and go in and make arrests. That's not what he said. He said there was things like property damage and garbage and noise and the state of disrepair inside some of these homes. The city does have some authority to intervene with partners, such as the RNC. So that's basically what Mike Murray said. But when the city came back and said, we can't control the criminal element, that's not what anybody said, though. In the effort of partnership, whether it be with law enforcement and or the province, I do think, having read it and heard from Mike Murray and others, I think there's more the city can do. The city can be more active on trying to help neighbors and help neighborhoods that are plagued with these types of what people call trap houses.
The thing is that it's also the speed at which we react. And again, we see this in all bureaucracies, whether it's a large business or it's the city or it's a province. It's the speed. We have some great employees, and we have to build this. It's not a pile on, because that doesn't get what you want. If we have any power we can do to help, we need to do it. We need to do it as quickly as we can, and it needs to be comprehensive. I also, I see it, where we have landlords, even landlords that don't have trap houses, who aren't maintaining their properties properly and don't respond quick enough. And so, I know we've got to build to this. So I'm not saying this is a flick a switch type thing. However, we owe it to do whatever we can. I mean, we have the resources, we have the people, and the community wants to be part of the solution. Like, they're not standing by and like this lady. They met yesterday with the legal and with the chief inspector and with the mayor. I mean, that's a beginning. And I know that what came out of that was, we really, from her description, I'm planning to be speaking about it today, with the mayor, and just to get a briefing on this meeting. But I know that not our wheelhouse, not our problem, is not good enough. That's not why we get paid. It's not what the city, the residents expect. However, they need to be part of the solution, which they're trying, and many are. And I want to encourage people to have that conversation and to reach out to all their counselors, because we have to be empathetic, but we also have to be informed, and we also have to feel the pressure. Just like any employee, we need to feel the pressure from the employer, who is everybody who pays our salaries, and also we need to have to go and look people in the face. The nice thing with the election, if you knock doors, is you saw firsthand the homes that weren't maintained. You saw firsthand the people who were afraid in their homes. And that starts to fade away the farther you get away from knocking on those people's doors. And so the residents, and a lot of the ones, they've given up, they're apathetic, they're what's the difference? There's no point. Well, there is a point, because it'll only get worse. If we don't come together and do something about it, it will not get better. It's not going to heal itself on its own. It's going to take a whole community and your program, which is an excellent voice. And I hope that all my fellow councillors and any politician is paying attention, because it's so important to do something. We got to do something.
Absolutely. Tom, I'm going to leave it there because I have to take a break, but I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Take care, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break a little bit early. For those of you in the queue, stay right there. Darren's got a follow-up call with the heat pump program issue that he's facing. Gary wants to talk about a school in Kings Cove, and Beaton's got a concern with his sick wife's moose license. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Darren, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. I'm calling back because I had a couple points last week when I talked to you that I didn't touch on. When I had a chance encounter there with the MHA here in our area, and I live in Kings Point, I had mentioned to him, is there anything that their office can do to help fix up my heat pump? And he referred me to the company that actually did the install. And I hadn't told them which company I had used at the time, but like I said, he referred me back to them to get my problems fixed. And I told them, I said, that's the company that actually did my installs. Well, what I found out is that the MHA is also the brother to the electrician that was doing the work. That the brother is now suspended. His electrical license is suspended because he's working with a fraudulent license. And the two other reputable companies that are in our area have found out that the MHA's office had been referring their company to all kinds of people, and that's who they've been using to get these installs done. So now, just the other day, I was speaking to somebody that even had their electrical system upgraded. So they had to go from 100 amp to a 200 amp service, and they had their heat pump installed. But now he is frightened to death finding out about all these electrical issues to actually use his heat pump. And that's his only heat source in his house. And there's, something that's going to happen, and seriously going to happen to somebody, whether their house burns down or whatever. What I'm also concerned now is, what are the insurance ramifications once the insurance companies find out that this company has done all these installs with a fraudulent electrician inspecting the work, and like I said, leaving people in such a bad state with heat pumps that they can't even use. Like, we're coming back up on the winter season again, and the Take Charge NL program needs to step up and help fix these problems, because people switched over without having the money or the funds to be able to afford this. Now they've gone from wood and oil furnaces to a furnace or a heat pump that they cannot use in their house. And something really seriously needs to be done before, like I said, someone's house burns down, or even worse, someone's house burns down with people inside. I just want somebody to step up and start helping the people in our area.
Yeah, I mean, the accredited contractor conversation is interesting because they even talk about it in the world of housing, to have an approved contractor list. And when I last spoke to it, I recalled your last call to the program and talked about the need to update an approved list constantly, because if someone gets on a list and all of a sudden they can rest on those laurels, and maybe, just maybe, some contractors will cut corners, do shoddy work, and then where are we?
Right. And that's the thing, that the Take Charge program has a list of contractors, and those are the only ones you're allowed to select from. I'm not allowed to select somebody that's not on that list, that hasn't been approved by the Take Charge program. So where's their responsibility in the whole situation? They say they have no responsibility, but yet they force you to use their list of contractors. So now I'm stuck with a heat pump that I can't use. There's another person here that had the electrical system upgraded because were getting the heat pump done. They're stuck now, and they're scared for their life to use their heat pump, worrying about their house burning down. So something needs to be done by the government to step up, and we're in such a terrible spot now, switching governments, because the new government's just going to come in and say, well, it was the old government's problem, not ours, or whatever, right? So where's the help? We need some help in our area to get people's heat pumps fixed so they can use them, before, right now, before February and March set in, when the extreme colds, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. And what role the government should have directly in this, I'm not really sure. Because for me, it really comes back to the company that's solely the unit. They've got to play a role right through the execution, the sale, the payment, the installation, and to make sure that you're happy enough with what you bought. And that includes the subcontractors they would use or recommend.
But again, they've been just taking advantage of the government program. Knowing that they're doing shoddy work, they're just going to end up folding up and probably declaring bankruptcy or whatever before they have to fix anybody's units.
Totally understand. And we tried some follow-up. I'll put it back on my list to see if we can't get some direct response on a specific issue like the one you're talking about here on the program from the government. Appreciate the time. Anything else, Darren, before I get another call on?
Thank you for doing what you do, and let's go Blue Jays.
Yeah, let's go Blue Jays. You got that right. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Where to, Dave? Line number 5. 5 it is. 5 it is. Beating you around the ear.
Yes, good morning, Paddy.
Good morning.
I'm calling about my wife had a license for to go and get a moose the year. It happened that she ended up in the hospital while she's dying with cancer and that, as you know. I contacted the wildlife office in Corner Brook to see if I could go and kill the moose for her. Now they're saying that I can't, but I got to get a letter from a doctor to send to them in order to get the $55 back that you paid for the license. But I got to turn around and got to pay $50 to get back $55. For me to get a doctor to fill in the letter, it's going to cost me $50. So either way, I'm going to be in the loss. I got to lose $50 to get back $55.
What's the $50 charge for? You have to pay $50 to apply for a refund for a license you can't use?
In order for me to get back the $55 that you paid for the license, I got to get a doctor to fill out the form for me to send to Corner Brook office.
Right. Okay.
It's going to cost me $50 for get that paper filled out by the doctor. So, with the government we got in now, I like to see them change it. I mean, if you're home sick, you can't get out and get a fish or something like that. Somebody has to go get your fish for you. So, why can't they do the same thing for the moose license?
Yeah.
Either way, I'm going to be out money.
And when you think about it one step further, is how many people who go into the lottery to get a moose license are lucky enough to get one and then want to give it back? They applied because they wanted a moose license. If you can't go for whatever reason, it's hard to think or feel that someone's trying to scam the government. All you do is give the license back, get a refund, they'll give it to the next person who's waiting. It just sounds...
Yeah, exactly.
A bit weird.
Exactly. I agree with you. But like I said, for me now to get back that $55 that she paid, I got to spend $50 to a doctor to get a letter filled out. So, which to me it doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah.
Not one bit, but I like to see it change. Just put it the way they got the fish for you. You can go to a doctor, get a letter, and you go out and catch your 5 fish every day that you're allowed to go out for this person because they can't get a word about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And my wife's in the hospital right now. I mean, I'm at the hospital now. I'm outside, but I mean, she only got a matter of probably days or it might be a week or so. That's what all she got left. So, and I'm going to lose this money. I mean, either way, I got to lose $50 to get back $55.
Oh, man, what a tangle. So unnecessary. Beaton, I'm really sorry to hear about your wife and her status here today, and it's just frustrating that while you're dealing with this and the sadness and anxiety that goes with it, you got to consider losing money or paying money as opposed to just the government saying, here, give me the license and here's your money back and let's all move on. But, of course, dealing with the government is never that simple.
No, that's for sure. No, I guarantee it. But I hope now this new government we got, Tony Wakeham, we got listening, do something about it. Not only for me, there's a lot of people out there that's in my situation. And a lot of people got a license and can't get it and get it. So why not let someone kill it for them?
Makes all the sense in the world to me, Beaton. I'll let you get back to your wife. I appreciate your time and your concern here this morning.
Thank you very much, my friend.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you think about it. So people go through the process of getting into the Moose License lottery, lucky enough to get one. Unfortunately, things change. They're unable to go out and get their animal. They didn't apply for the license for a lark, and nor did they try to scam the government. Things change. And so, I mean, there's obviously someone out there who didn't get their license, who would love to have Beaton's wife's license, but no, we're going to make an appointment at a doctor, which is hard enough in the first place, to prove that his wife is dying so that someone else can hunt and get a moose. Just checking in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line, you know what to do. You can follow us there. Suggestions, feedback, of which we get plenty. Also in the email inbox, it's openline@vocm.com. Plenty of stuff rolling in here today. I purposely brought up a couple of topics off the top, which I know are emotional, and they bring forth some pretty stern opinions, but that's the nature of the beast. And like Carl, one of the first callers there this morning, mentioned the fact that he was a bit nervous to even speak to the issue, and in this case, it was immigration. Look, we can have the conversations here on the show. The ones that we avoid are generally the most complicated and also probably the most important ones. So we can do that. I'm away tomorrow, but we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning with a guest host right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. Talk in the morning. Bye-bye.